Whenever you see someone in a cast, there's this incredible invisible construction project happening right underneath. A broken bone doesn't just sit there. Nope, it's actively rebuilding itself, second by second. It's this silent, automatic process that's just a masterpiece of biological engineering. So let's take a look behind the curtain at this amazing world of self-repair.
It all starts with that one single moment. A crack, a snap, a fracture. And yeah, it's a trauma, for sure, but it's also the starting gun for one of the most incredible healing processes our bodies can perform.
So what is actually going on in there during those weeks and months? How does that gap in the bone get bridged? Is it some kind of superglue, a patch? Well, the answer is kind of both, and the whole process is way more fascinating than you probably think.
Okay, first, let's talk about the body's default setting. This is the natural way of healing, and the official term for it is indirect fracture healing. This is what happens most of the time, when a bone is put in a cast that allows for just a tiny, tiny bit of movement.
Now, the absolute hero of this entire story is something called a callus. And it's not actually bone, not yet anyway. Think of it like the body's own custom-built scaffolding. It's this temporary patch made of cartilage and some early-stage bone that's just strong enough to stabilize everything so the real repair work can get started.
This timeline here maps out the entire journey. It kicks off with an emergency response. You get some bleeding at the break, which forms a clot. That clot is like a flare, signaling the body's cleanup crew, these inflammatory cells, to rush in and clear out all the debris. Then, the construction phase begins. In just a couple of weeks, the body builds that soft, cartilage-like callus across the gap. After that, the soft patch starts to harden into what we call a hard callus. But the job still isn't done. The final stage, which can take months or even years, is remodeling. This is where the body meticulously sculpts that rough patch, refining it back into strong, perfectly formed bone.
All right, here's something that might sound totally backward. This natural healing process, it actually needs a little bit of movement to work. I know, it's counterintuitive, right? But that subtle micromotion is the exact signal that tells the body, hey, build a stabilizing callus right here. And that's exactly why a cast's job is to limit big movements, but not eliminate all movement.
So that first soft callus is playing this brilliant double agent role. It's bridging the gap and giving things stability, but it's also flexible enough to allow for that crucial micromotion we just talked about. It's the perfect temporary fix that sets the stage for the permanent one, solid, hard bone.
And this is the moment everyone's waiting for. When a doctor finally sees that hard callus show up on an X-ray, it's the first real, concrete proof that the two ends of the bone are finally coming back together. It's the sign that everything is on track and the fracture is getting good and stable.
But the body is a perfectionist. That initial hard callus is usually pretty bulky, kind of messy, like a rough patch job. The final stage, remodeling, is like a master sculptor coming in to do the finishing touches. Over time, the body chips away at all the excess material, refines the shape, and reorganizes the whole structure into strong, mature bone, making it as good as new, or sometimes even stronger than before.
But what if a fracture is really complex? What if it needs to be held perfectly still with plates and screws? What happens when you can't have any movement at all? Well, in that case, the body pulls out a completely different blueprint for healing, a totally separate path that doesn't involve a callus at all. This is called direct bone healing, and it happens when there's absolute stability, zero movement. The body basically says, okay, no need for the big scaffolding, and it skips the whole callus building phase entirely. It's a much more direct route to getting the job done.
The way to think about it is, instead of building a big bridge around the gap, the body's own construction crews, these little units called osteons, they just tunnel directly across the fracture line. They literally link up with each other, weaving the bone back together from the inside out. It's an incredibly precise way to repair things.
So there we have it, two totally different strategies for fixing the exact same problem. Let's put them side by side so you can really see how different they are. Okay, check this out. Natural healing absolutely needs that micromovement to build its callus. On the other hand, surgical or direct healing demands total rigidity and builds no callus. It's a really fundamental difference, right? One builds a big bridge around the outside, the other rebuilds from the inside out. And what's the deciding factor? It all comes down to how much movement is happening at the fracture site.
So, knowing all this, what are the things that can either help the healing process along or really mess it up?
especially when we're talking about that all-important natural callus formation.
You know, it's an incredibly delicate balance. A little bit of motion is good, but too much is bad. A good blood supply is absolutely critical to deliver the oxygen needed for that callus to harden up. Gentle compression actually helps, but if there are any gaps or if the bone ends are getting pulled apart, what doctors call distraction, that can just stop the process cold. It's all about creating the perfect Goldilocks environment, stable enough to heal, but with just enough movement to get that amazing callus to form.
When you step back and look at the whole picture, it's really remarkable. Our body doesn't just have one way to fix a broken bone, it has a whole playbook.
And this, to me, is the most amazing part of the whole story. Your body isn't just following one set of instructions. It's reading the situation. Based on the mechanical signals it gets, tiny movements or complete stillness, it intelligently picks the perfect healing blueprint for the job. It's just a stunning example of adaptive biology, and it's happening inside us without a single conscious